Hi everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Today I'm going to be doing the Canterbury Tales book tag. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today I'm going to be doing the Canterbury Tales book tag, which was created by AJ Dunn Reads and Writes. I will link AJ's version of the tag with all of the questions, because there are a lot of questions on this one, down below in the description. So do go and check out AJ's original video. I've been very kindly tagged 3 times in this video, once by AJ, once by Roz at Scally Dandling about the books, and again by Shelley Swearingen. So thank you to all of those 3 for tagging me. I'll link them all in the description down below. And this tag has 26 prompts, but AJ has said that they are optional, so I'm not going to be doing all 26. I think I'm maybe going to be doing about 20 of them, but we'll see how many we can get through. Question 1 is the host. The host is the character who relates the tales to... So before we start, some people have mentioned whether or not they've read the Canterbury Tales. I have not. I think when I was in primary school, when we were in an English lesson, we read either the prologue or the introduction to the characters, and then we had to like work together and draw the characters from the descriptions in Old English. So I've read that bit. I've never actually read any of it since, so I do definitely intend to read the Canterbury Tales. I actually live fairly close to Canterbury, which is where the pilgrims were going on their pilgrimage in the Canterbury Tales, and I'm going to try and include in this video some pictures that I recently took in Canterbury of the Chaucer statue, and it shows the different pilgrims around the base. And I did try and get a picture of the cathedral, but there's quite a lot of repairs going on to the cathedral. But yes, Canterbury. So question 1 is about the host. The host is the character who relates the tales to the reader. He is large, loud and merry. Recommend a mammoth book of over 800 pages for March of the Mammoths. Now, when I initially planned to do this video, it was March. It's now May, but for next month, March of the Mammoths, I would recommend Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens. Not sure how long this is page count wise because I listened to it on audio, but it is probably my favourite. It's so difficult to choose a favourite with Dickens, but it's definitely one of my favourites so far. I loved the wide range of characters in this and the wide range of different little interlinked storylines. Really liked what Dickens was doing. So although I love David Copperfield and Great Expectations, I really enjoyed Our Mutual Friend as well, and I'd recommend it. Question 2 is the Knight. The Knight stands for fighting, war and bravery. Recommend a book with a courageous main character. I've gone for Philip Pullman's Northern Lights, and the courageous main character is Lyra. Lyra Belacqua, but later in the books she is known as Lyra Silvertongue. I really like Lyra as a character. She's a very adventurous young girl who sort of sets out on her own little quest, and that quest takes her to places that I don't think she knew that they would take her to. I particularly enjoy the relationship between Lyra and Will in the second book, The Subtle Knife. Their friendship is, for me, a real strength of that book, and The Subtle Knife is my favourite of the 3. But yes, I love Lyra as a courageous main character. The Wife of Bath stands for marriage, sex and arguing. Tell us about a book with a strong female character. I'm going to tell you about a strong female character who is not about marriage, sex and arguing, but she is a strong female, and that is Miss Marple. This is my favourite Miss Marple book, Sleeping Murder. It's also Miss Marple's last case, and I think Miss Marple is an underrated strong female character because she is frequently underestimated as an old lady and thought of as not very important, but she always manages to solve the case. You know, she has this wealth of knowledge of people past and present from the village. She applies all that knowledge and she can solve any case without actually going and investigating it herself. So really admire Miss Marple as an older but strong female character. But she's not like the wife of Bath at all. The next question is the Miller. The Miller is bold, blasphemous and overturns conventions. Who is your favourite naughty character? The naughty character I've enjoyed recently is the character of Davy in Anne of Avonlea by L.M. Montgomery. I just think that Davy is hilarious. Like, he's so naughty. He gets into so much trouble. He's one of twins, and his twin Dora is well behaved and a bit too perfect. And Davy just creates enough trouble for both of them. He's just this book just made me laugh so much with Davy's antics. The next question, the Prioress. The Prioress is modest, quiet and compassionate. Recommend a book you don't hear much about on BookTube. I've never heard this book mentioned on BookTube, but I love it. I read it quite a long time ago, and that is The End of Mr. Y by Scarlett Thomas. And this is about a character called Ariel who uncovers a copy of The End of Mr. Y in a second-hand bookshop, and can't believe her eyes. She knows about the author, who was an eccentric Victorian scientist, and she knows that copies are exceedingly rare and some say cursed. Yeah, this is about Ariel being swept into a sort of... It's hard to explain this book. Like, there's time travel, there's a bit of everything in this. It just says on the back, a thrilling adventure, and there is a thrilling adventure in this. But I don't ever hear this talked about, and I found this book to be unique and really, really different, and I always like a book that's a bit different. I haven't yet found another book by Scarlett Thomas that I like as much as this one. This one's definitely my top favourite of hers, and yeah, I'd be interested to hear other people talk about it. If you've read this, let me know in the comments. Next we have The Monk. The Monk cares little for the rule of work and prayer. Tell us about an unconventional character. So I've gone with a really unconventional character, a main character who is a dog, and that's Enzo from The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein. I read this last year and it was my top favourite fiction novel of last year, because Enzo is just such a wonderful character. He's very unconventional, he is a dog, and he's a dog who loves motor racing and watching videos of motor races. So this is a fantastic book all about Enzo trying to look after his family, particularly his owner Denny, and he has his own ideas as well about life and death and reincarnation. So highly, highly recommend Enzo and his story, but this is very emotional. The Parson, a book that gave you more than expected, and that was The Time Traveller's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. The Time Traveller's Wife is such an interesting book, and I can distinctly remember being scornful of this book when my mum suggested that I read it. I was like, The Time Traveller's Wife? Are you serious? That's going to be terrible. She basically said it was a fantastic book and I wouldn't regret it, and I didn't regret it. It's such a brilliant story about like the love story between someone who sort of involuntarily travels through time and a girl that he meets, and their timelines intersect in different ways. And I haven't even been able to watch the film of this because I just don't feel that they would get it right, but it gave me way more than I expected. The Squire. The Squire stands for youth, beauty and courting. What book did you fall in love with when you were a youth? So several books really. One would be The Secret Garden, another one would be The Borrowers. I absolutely love the book The Borrowers, and also Tom's Midnight Garden. All fantastic books that I had read to me when I was younger. But the book I've picked out off my bookshelf, because I don't hear this talked about either, is Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim by Robert C. O'Brien. This is such a good book about Mrs. Frisby, who is a field mouse. She and her ailing son are in severe danger because their home is about to be destroyed, and they get help from the Rats of Nim in the title. This is just a really interesting adventure about mice and rats, and I loved this when I was a child. It's fantastic. The Man of Law upholds justice and knows the laws by heart. What is a book you could not imagine rereading? Wuthering Heights. I really like, people talk about Wuthering Heights so much and give it such high praise that I do want to reread it, I want to be wrong about this book, but it was the first classic that I read and I hated it. It was like, the best thing about Wuthering Heights is the Wuthering Heights song by Kate Bush, in my opinion, and the book is just full of horrible people who you can't care about, in my eyes. I know this divides opinion, and I know there's a lot of people out there who love Wuthering Heights, and I'm sorry, but I'm still not at the point where I feel like I could ever reread this book. Part of me wants to, now that I'm more into classics, but part of me just can't see it happening. The Manspool provides the food. Recommend a series you think is good from the first book to the last. I think you're all going to know which series I'm going to say here, and that is The Dark is Rising sequence by Susan Cooper. I've mentioned this book on my channel so many times now, but I want people to read this. It's so good. It starts with the book Oversea Under Stone. It goes into more of a fantasy world in the second book, The Dark is Rising, which is followed up by Greenwich, which is followed up by, I can't remember which order the last two are in, but The Grey King and Silver on the Tree. It is just such a great fantasy-ish, adventure-ish children's book series, and I cannot believe that more people haven't read this. If you haven't read The Dark is Rising sequence by Susan Cooper, read it. It's just wonderful from start to finish. All 5 books. Whenever I reread these, I start out thinking how much I love the first book. I go on to the second book, I love it even more, and the series just builds for me. Each book, as I read it, I think, oh, I love this one the most. I've mentioned it many times, but definitely that book series. The Merchant. The Merchant deals in furs and cloth and is powerful and wealthy. Recommend a book with a powerful message or theme. I'm going to mention another of my favourites that comes up on this channel time and time again, which is The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. This really drove home to me about the futility of war and like just the horrors of the Second World War, really, and it also has a powerful message about the power of being able to read, of reading in general, and I just love this book and I will not ever stop recommending The Book Thief. I think it's so powerful in its message and its theme. The Shipman is a wine-stealing rascal. Tell us about a side character who steals the spotlight. Mine is a character who appears in the Hercule Poirot series, and I think she always steals the spotlight every time she turns up, and that is Ariadne Oliver. The book that she's in here is Mrs. McGinty's Dead, but she also features in Halloween Party, Dead Man's Folly, Cards on the Table, Third Girl, Elephants Can Remember. The embodiment of Agatha Christie herself, really. She's a detective writer and she's just hilarious. She often gets across Agatha Christie's own opinions about writing and about mistakes that she's made in the past, and I just think she steals the show every time she appears. The Guildsmen. The Guildsmen are 5 men who act as a unit and stand for brotherhood or sisterhood. Recommend a book with a strong ensemble cast of characters. I'm going to recommend here the Ruth Galloway series of books by Ellie Griffiths. I love the cast of characters in this. Ruth Galloway is actually probably my least favourite of the characters, but there's a brilliant detective chief inspector, I think he is, called Nelson, and there's his wife, his family, and the cast of characters is just fantastic in this. There's so much drama in these books, all coming from the characters, so I highly recommend that series. The Cook. The Cook makes the food that feeds your soul. Tell us about a book that feeds your soul, because I had 3. And they're all about the same thing, and they feed my soul because I am such a book lover, and they are of course books about books. So we've got Bookworm, we've got How to Be a Heroine by Samantha Ellis, and we've got Dear Reader by Kathy Rensenbrink. 2 of these were my top 2 books of last year, and one of them is a book about books I read quite a while ago. I did make a video last year about how much I love books about books and did a bit of a top 5. I think that was before I'd read Dear Reader, which is now firmly at the top. So yeah, books that feed my soul are anything book related, really. Books about books. Even fiction books that are book related, library related, bookshop related are often favourites, such as Cloud Cookie Lands, which heavily features a book and a library. So we're coming on to the last few questions now. The Yeoman serves you. Tell us about a book that served its purpose, did what you wanted it to do, not great but not bad. I've gone for here the final book in the Dexter series, Dexter is Dead by Jeff Lindsay. This book did what it set out to do and finished off the Dexter series, rounded it off. Did I love it? No. Was it anywhere near as good as the other books in the series? Probably not, but it did what I expected it to do in finishing the series, and I still enjoyed it because it was still the last book in the Dexter series. But yeah, that is a book that served its purpose. The second nun talks about a saint's life in her tale. What book do you praise often? I've already mentioned quite a lot of the ones that I praise often, but I'm going to go with the Frida Klein series by Nikki French. Frida Klein is just one of the best characters. I could have mentioned Frida actually for a strong female character because she is fantastic. I do hope to make a video about this series in the future, but I would quite like to reread it before I do, and it's just so busy at the moment, so we'll see. But Frida Klein is a character made up by Nikki French, and she features in their series of books that all have days of the weeks in the title. It's actually a series of 8 books. It begins with Blue Monday, works its way through the days of the week, and then has a final book called Day of the Dead. And I just think this series is such a perfect crime thriller series by Nikki French. It comes a little bit away from their usual psychological thriller type style, but it still retains a bit of that, but it goes a bit more into crime. And Frida and the whole cast of characters are just so brilliantly written, and I would urge you to check out this series. It's absolutely fantastic. Final question, apart from tagging people. The nun's priest is witty and doesn't take himself too seriously. Recommend a book that has a funny or witty main character. I'm going to go with Molesworth. This is a collection of the Molesworth books, and I just find Nigel Molesworth pretty hilarious, so he is definitely a very funny main character. And finally, question 26 was tag some BookTube pilgrims. Possibly people have already done it. I've tried to pick some people who I don't think have already done it, but I could be wrong. I'm going to tag David Wiley and Aaron Facer because I know David Wiley loves Chaucer, and I think Aaron would enjoy this tag as well. I'm also going to tag Gemma from Gemma Books. I'm also going to tag Mel at Roaming Through Books. I've recently started chatting to Mel, and she has a brand new channel, and I really think that you should go and check it out. No pressure to do this tag, of course, but it does have a great set of questions. Thank you, AJ, for creating this tag, and sorry I have waited so long to do it. If you've enjoyed this tag today, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments about any of the books that I've mentioned, or answer any of the questions that you'd like to. I will hope to see you all again soon for another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.